requires a first reading, a publication, and a second reading. But the city does not have to send you individual notices like they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have to provide each person with an individual notice that, oh, we're changing the plan, we're adding some houses. So people would need to be on top of it all the time to make sure that it doesn't happen. The other thing is that you don't have a chance to come back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and argue that the neighborhood isn't blighted and your house shouldn't be taken. Because that issue is going to be resolved once council takes its vote. You can only argue at that time about the specifics of whether they should or shouldn't take your house, and there isn't a whole lot of legal ground to argue about. So some neighborhoods didn't mind that. Some neighborhoods said, we can live with that. Some neighborhoods said, no, we don't want that. And that's, I think, if you don't have the city make some changes between now and the council vote, that's going to be the situation, and you have to decide whether you're okay with that or not. The next thing I want to cover real quickly is the process, so you know where you are in the process. There's 2 steps, but the city is combining them into one. There is the designation of the redevelopment area, and there's the actual adoption of the plan. For designation of the redevelopment area, the planning board has to vote on it. My understanding is that last night the planning board had a hearing, but it didn't vote. So at some point, the planning board has to vote. Once the planning board votes, if it votes yes, it goes to city council, and city council votes on it. That's just a resolution. That's not an ordinance. It doesn't require personal notice. It just goes to city council, and city council votes as a resolution. It can even be walked on as a sort of a last minute agenda item. So you need to watch carefully if it goes past the planning board when it's going to city council. Once city council votes, if it creates a condemnation redevelopment area, it's going to give all of you notice that that decision has been made. You're going to get another letter, and it's going to say you have 45 days from that day to file a lawsuit. That's the designation part. The plan adoption, the planning board reviews the plan, it goes to city council, and city council passes it like it passes any other ordinance. Which means it does a first reading at which they just say, ordinance to adopt Whitman Park redevelopment plan, blah, blah, blah. It passes, that's first reading. Then they publish it in a newspaper. 10 days later, they come back and they have a public hearing and they vote on it. Challenging the plan, you basically have 45 days from the vote of council. So if they happen the same night, that's your 45-day period. So at this point, you're early in the process still. The planning board just considered it. At some point, they're going to have to come back to it. And to the extent that the residents can be unified to speak in one voice, the more influence you'll have in front of the planning board and city council.
That's right.
To the extent that so-and-so is saying this and so-and-so is saying that, and there's no unified voice, the more the city says, well, we don't know who to listen to. So that's why I think meetings like this are really important, because it gives you all a chance to meet and talk and discuss and see where you want to go. The last thing I want to say is how we resolved it in some other redevelopment cases. In Kramer Hill, the neighbors put up a huge fight. It was public, it was in the media. There were 1,100 houses that were going to be taken in Kramer Hill. And that really sparked a lot of neighborhood outrage. And those people would not give up. We had a lawsuit that was also joined by some major businesses like Hargrove Demolition, because they were going to take Hargrove Demolition's site too. So a combined lawsuit, we kept invalidating the adoption of the plan on really technical grounds, really silly technical grounds. They didn't do this right, they didn't do that right, they didn't give notice of a public hearing, they didn't put it on their agenda 48 hours in advance. I mean, really silly technical grounds. And after we won the third time, the city decided not to go forward with it. And they redid the plan so that most of Kramer Hill is in a rehabilitation area, which is similar to a redevelopment area, but doesn't allow eminent domain. And then a couple of little discrete little parcels were made into redevelopment areas where the city could use eminent domain, but there was only like 12 residents who were affected by it. So that's the revised Kramer Hill plan. So the city can take the 1,100 homes, and it doesn't have the eminent domain piece hanging over them. In Lanning Square,
Makes much more sense.
the city initially started with a list of 212 homes they were taking. Should I? And over time, as the neighborhood opposition grew stronger and stronger, they kept changing that list. So they reduced it from 212 to 140 to 98. But by that point, residents were really nervous that one day they're on the list, one day they're not on the list. And finally, the city said, okay, we're not going to take any occupied homes of eminent domain. The same thing they said in here in Whitman Park. And the residents said, no, that's not good enough, because we know you can change your list. So we want protection that the same kind of thing you did in Kramer Hill, that we're not in a redevelopment zone. Well, the city really balked at that, because they said, in Kramer Hill, you have entire sections that are residential, that have pretty nice homes, where we really don't need to acquire a lot of land.
Get you on a microphone here, how about
For my
that?
last 2 minutes.
For the last 2 minutes, save your voice for tomorrow.
Thank you.
The importance of it.
So now can everybody hear me? So in Lanning Square, the residents asked for the same thing as in Kramer Hill. They asked that most of the neighborhood not be in a redevelopment zone, and just little pockets of it would be in a redevelopment zone. And the city said, no, we can't do that. Because in Lanning Square, unlike Kramer Hill, the vacant lands, the abandoned sites, the decrepit buildings, they're scattered through the neighborhood. So we want to pluck one here and we want to pluck one there, and we can't do that if most of the neighborhood isn't in a redevelopment zone. And we tried to argue with them that there are other ways they could acquire those buildings. You know, there is a vacant building and nuisance law that specifically allows the city to take by eminent domain properties that are declared nuisances. They also could acquire properties through tax foreclosures. But the city was stubborn on that. They said, no, that costs more, takes more time, it's more complicated, we want to be able to use eminent domain. So what we worked out in Lanning Square is we drew up a list of every single occupied home. And those occupied homes, parcel by parcel, were taken out of the redevelopment zone. And the rest of the neighborhood stayed in a redevelopment zone. And I don't know, I mean, maybe the city really regrets it did that. But it worked for us to settle that case. So that ended that long stretch of litigation, and the residents are happy because they were protected. The changes to the law in 2013 actually make it easier for the city to do what it did in Kramer Hill. Because, you know, the difference between a rehabilitation zone and a redevelopment zone, they're kind of the same thing, but there are certain abilities the city has in a redevelopment zone that it really wants to use, and the powers under a rehabilitation zone are a little more limited. Well, under the 2013 law, the city has exactly the same powers for a non-condemnation redevelopment area as it does for a condemnation redevelopment area, except for that use of eminent domain. And I think the legislature did that because they knew that a lot of cities wanted the flexibility of redevelopment zones, and their main opposition was that people didn't want this eminent domain threat. So that's why they sort of created this middle road. Would this middle road work for Whitman Park, and would the city agree to it for Whitman Park? I don't know. I think what you would hear from the city if you suggest it is that there is so much land that's underused, vacant, abandoned, decrepit that they want to acquire by eminent domain, that there is no solid core that they can say we won't touch. But I have no opinion on this. you folks know your neighborhood, you know what it looks like, you know whether that approach would make sense or it wouldn't. You would probably want to consult with a planner who would take a fresh eye at, a fresh look at this and say, could this be made to work or not? In Lanning Square and in Kramer Hill, we had expert planners working with us to support our position. So that's the information I wanted to share with you. I don't know if you want me to answer questions or you want me to turn it over to your other speakers, or I'm happy to stay and answer some questions if people have them.
All right, thank you. What we're going to do, we do want to answer your questions. We know you have a lot of questions. We're only here until about 1 o'clock, and we do have Mrs. Turner here also to reinforce and give some more insight about eminent domain, about the redevelopment plan, about the process in that. What I want you to take away from this is that we have to have a unified voice. Mm-hmm. That we have to come together and send a message of what we want, determine what you want. And I am guessing that we are all here because we want to keep our homes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Lord.
And we are all here because we want to see our neighborhood better. Yes. We want to have redevelopment in our neighborhood. Yes. But we just want to make sure that that eminent domain clause is out of there, that where our neighborhoods are improved, yes, but we are able to keep our homes. Right. So we need to be able to come together to present that plan to the city, and that's what we're going to work on. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Mr. Turner to come up and speak a little bit more on his expertise about eminent domain and the whole process. And then after he speaks, we'll give you an opportunity. Everybody's not going to be able to ask questions. But what I'm going to do, I have some young ladies that are here that can pass out information, email, my phone number, if your question was not answered. So your question will be answered. And this is not going to be the last time that we come together. We're looking to come together within the next 30 days at this location, hopefully in a larger place. But this is what we have, and so we wanted to be able to have some place where we can meet. So I'm going to allow Mr. Turner to come up, and then afterwards we will have some questions that we're going to write down. I'm going to write down and jot them for the other attorney who we're going to contact over the phone, and it's going to be able to speak. And we have the microphone now, and we'll be able to hear him. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Brian Turner, former city attorney. I'm here concerned with the rest of you that are here. I did grow up in this area. I grew up on Chase Street, 1231. My house is no longer there. It was torn down. So, turn the mic. Can you better? We good? Yeah. All right. You got a lot of information this morning, and a lot of detailed information. The only information that I'm going to add is the tail end of the information. So if any of you have notebooks, start jotting down your questions now, because I know there are a lot of people have questions. I'm not going to be here on the mic that long because the information that you have received this afternoon is invaluable. It's going to put you in a better place to make a decision. But with respect to eminent domain, generally, how it works once you get past the redevelopment plan process and it's approved, the city will hire an independent appraiser to come out and examine your properties and give your properties a value. You will then be given an offer for your property, and most times it's a lowball offer. They're going to say, you can take this money and leave, and that's it, and you can be done with it. You'll get that offer. If that offer is rejected, you then have to file a lawsuit. You're going to reject that offer. You're going to go to court, and you're going to have a mediation to determine what the fair value of your property is. Once that fair value of your property is determined, the eminent domain process keeps going. The eminent domain process doesn't stop if you guys disagree on the value. Eventually, there's going to be a trial to determine the value of your home. And once that value is determined, you can take the offer. If not, If you don't take that offer, the city then has, or the government agency then has the right to then take your property, and you will receive the amount of money that the court determines. And before that happens, what has to happen is the court, or the federal agency, has to deposit an amount of money, an already predetermined amount of money, into an escrow account. And the reason why that happens is because generally when these eminent domain processes begin, if you don't provide a valid reason as to why they should stop, they generally keep going. So the court says, listen, we understand how eminent domain works. We understand that once the process gets going, it's going to get to its end point. So we want you to put this amount of money in the bank, just in case the person doesn't take the money that you're offering them. So the money's already there, which tells you that once this process already starts, it's already going to get to its end point. And it can happen very quickly, or it can be drawn out. The drawn out part is more expensive, but that's not something that we have to worry about right now. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Generally, as individuals fighting this on your own, sometimes it's very difficult. It's very important for you as a group to stick together with one united voice. Yes, sir. Okay, better? It's very important for you guys to stay together as a group, because it's very difficult to fight these types of cases as dispersed individuals.
Right.
You've heard that several times today. I can't stress the importance of making sure that everyone has a united voice. Everyone is coming to these meetings. Everyone is learning each step that's going on with respect to the eminent domain process in the city. I don't think I can add anything else.
Well, I actually thought of one other thing.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to explain the eminent domain process, but I didn't want to hog the mic. But now that we've started it, I just want to stress that I don't know if it was made clear. You can be dispossessed from your house through eminent domain very quickly.
Yes.
While the court case about how much money you owe drags on and on. And anyone who was in Camden when Admiral Wilson Boulevard was cleaned up for the Republican convention saw that happen. That was the speediest use of eminent domain I've ever seen in my life. That street got cleared in 6 weeks. So it doesn't have to happen that quickly, but it can happen very quickly. The other thing is that the city does have to provide you with relocation assistance. Homeowners get $15,000 to cover moving, down payments, the closing costs and the like. Renters receive $4,000 over a period of 3 years. It's a pathetic amount of money. The relocation, they've been proposing to raise those amounts, and those amounts were passed in the early 70s and have never been changed. So it's not a lot of money. Eminent domain laws are harsh. They're very harsh. The city can be kinder when it does it. It can offer more money. It can offer relocation assistance above the amount that's required by law. I've seen cities do that, do more than they're legally required. But what they're legally required to do is pretty minimal.
Let's give Olga a hand, please.
I will.
Also, Brian Turner.
Yes.
So we lived up to our responsibility in terms of getting these lawyers out here today to give you some overview and then to back up what we were seeing in the church. And one of the things that I made a point of, you will be able to see that what we was telling you was honest and forthright, and it was true. That eminent redevelopment as a blanket designation for your area puts everybody in jeopardy. And so today, Olga reinforced that. We appreciate her. She's been an outstanding leader in eminent domain cases throughout New Jersey, more particularly here in Camden. So she's a leader, she's an authority, and we appreciate the time that she came out today. Now there's a third attorney that is available to represent everybody. But this is the key. You have to be available when we call upon you to sign up to be a client to move your case forward. And I think Olga and Brian Turner made a very good point. If people in this area try to do this individually, they will pick us off one at a time. That's why it's important that we come together as a group, the concerned citizens of Whitman Park, and show the city, show the politicians that we mean business. We elected them, we can take them out of office.
Amen.
We elected them, we can take them out of office.
Yes.
And that's the other very important thing that you got to realize. Camden people as a whole have never really shown their political power at the voting booth. It's time that we let people know that we're sick and tired of what they're doing to us as a community.
Amen.
So as a result of people not voting at the level that we should, the politicians have been taking ground, and now they are in Whitman Park. You follow me?
Yep.
And just so you know, the reason why some neighborhoods took redevelopment as a plus is because they did not get the information that you're getting.
Amen.
You follow me?
Yep.
So we made a point to make sure that you can make an informed decision about what is happening in this neighborhood. Now, we also offered them, it's one thing to talk a lot of trash about we don't want something, but we offered them a legally supportive alternative to their redevelopment plan. One that gives them, the city, the right to redevelop, keep that in mind, but also it keeps them from taking your property through eminent domain. That is where we want to take this fight. This is a message that we want to take to them, and this is very important that you understand. We want redevelopment in Whitman Park, but we don't want your homes taken because you invested too much time, too much energy, and too much blood, sweat, and tears to have you move out of this area while they redevelop. And I'm going to give you just an analogy. They asked this soldier one time in the government, why did you blow up communities? Why did you go into Vietnam and set communities on fire? And the position a lot of times a politician is, we will destroy your neighborhood first in order to rebuild it.
Yes, yes.
And we're saying, no, we want you to rebuild it while we can see the fruits of our labor right now while we're living. Amen?
Amen.
So that's what it's about. And Olga has been a fighter on this issue. She has a ton of information. And just so you know, myself and other people in this room were organizers in Kramer Hill, and we stopped a $1 billion developer from taking 1,000 homes in Kramer Hill. So, why am I saying that? A lot of people, if you don't have faith and you look at your circumstances, you're going to believe that your circumstances is going to dictate the outcome.
Amen.
But if you have faith in what can happen, we can overcome this situation. It was done in Kramer Hill. It was partially done in Langley Square West. It can be done here.
Right.
But we got to come together as a community, and we're going to keep you informed. There's a sign-in sheet. We got to, if you want us to get the information to you, you got to get your information to us. That's very important. So I just want to end by saying this. This is your time to see your neighborhood redeveloped. It can only happen if you stand up and stand up consistently. We are very proud to have the response that we have this morning. Because this is what they want. They want to drag out a process, tire you out, and then hope you go away. But we're not going away. We're going to keep you informed, and we're going to be victorious in the end. Can I get somebody to say that's okay?
That's okay.
Now we're going to answer a few questions, and the third attorney is going to be available. I think he's ready now. Okay.
Okay, we don't have a lot of time. Like I said, the attorney is available right now. We'll have some people passing out note cards as the attorney is speaking. You can write down some questions for us to entertain later on. Okay, because we want to make sure that we address your needs and your questions, but we don't have as much time today to do that. So once again, if you don't have an email, and write down your questions. If you have an email me the questions, and we will definitely get back to you. Thank you. Okay, if you want to write my email down right now, it's CMD, the letter CMD, C is in Camden, D is in mother, D is in, yes, it's right down the paper. And I also have voiceofaction@gmail.com. Also have more flyers to pass out that has my information on there also. So, okay. So we're going to pass out this right here for some of the questions. We have one person that wanted to start off with a question. Okay, all right, so we'll have the attorney come up. We'll get to your question.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Real quick. Hey, listen, can we give Namibia a great big hand clap? She's the one that organized this whole thing and put this together with her staff and her team. And we thank you, Namibia, for all your support and all your help. Now, listen, as you heard earlier,
No, not the CMD. That's for another
that
website.
from Olga and also from Brian, you heard the background, you heard the history. Now we need somebody that actually can represent. So he's not going to go through a lot of history. What's great about